someone will hurt. So that's the difference between an element that lacks feeling and an element that has feeling. And so I think that's really the only place that the middle way would draw the line between the two also. That which experiences it when you do something to it, and that which doesn't have experience. Did you still have?
Just a key part of the argument we talked about this. The scripture you quoted with the first time said, once.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Once a world is made, minds necessarily inhabit that world. Once a vessel is created, therefore it must be filled with minds.
That can happen very, very gradually, though, according to the Abhidharma. It can take a long time to fill a world, even according to Abhidharma. And that's a problem I raised at another point in the dissertation I'm not going to go into now. But according to Abhidharma, you can have the disk of wind, the disk of fire, well, not the fire, but the sea and the golden rain, and all those things take millions of years in an Abhidharma presentation. And then the living beings, when the karma is ripe, will be born there. And it does raise the question, and I see you shaking your head over there, it does raise the question of who's projecting that world when there's nobody actually living in it. And I would suggest that from a middle way point of view, there's no contradiction there. Because at some profound level of our karmic being, we are already in interaction with millions of other planets that potentially we could be reborn in. And how could the bardo work if there weren't some level of understanding that could send somebody's karma to a different planet? But I want to emphasize for you this traditional Buddhist view, which is accepted by the middle way, where there can be material worlds that are not inhabited by sentient beings now, but at some level exist and then can be experienced by beings when the karma is right. And so that's what Jetsakapa means when he says, we don't deny outer matter. We accept outer matter, as in those worlds that can be there, but not through any nature of their own. I'm hesitating on doing a whole question, because I see more hands here. So
very quick. I heard you say earlier, your karma created that person's karma. Were you refuting that karma?
I'm refuting that. But I've heard people say it, and I've definitely, it's come up in debate. So that's why I felt the need to address it.
I might have missed something, but one of the first passages you quoted, wasn't it about the ignorant mind creating the world and then sending forth the ignorant beings, and then Vajradhara creates a beautiful world and then sends forth all those beings. So how could that be true, and then this also be true? Is it just like summoning or like encouraging beings? But when I heard it, I was like, oh, and then the beings are created
by Vajradhara's mind, or
right, or the ignorant mind that creates the ignorant world.
Have to be. That commentary was in the context of a sadhana practice, which obviously I'm not teaching here. But the premises I actually am trying to raise. And Jetsakapa was giving a gloss on this phrase, the Lord of Consciousness. And what he's really trying to say is, yeah, for us, it is the Lord of Consciousness, our sentient being's mind, that create our world. And in that case, he didn't bifurcate about the sending out. The sending out part actually only came in the context of the sadhana. It's not totally understandable to me why that would have been confusing to you, because the very sentence from Nagabudi that he was glossing did put them together, and it was Jetsakapa who was separating them out. I think what Nagabudi may have been saying, from the context of Guesamaja and even the Guesamaja completion stage, that he would have been speaking from, he would have had reason to so put those minds together, to say they're not dual from each other. Apropos of, do we have two minds? You can't say we have two minds. There's a coarse mind, and there's a subtle mind, and there's an extremely subtle mind. And now I'm jumping into advanced teaching, but I'll say this. When the extremely subtle mind is, well, I'll say, when the coarse mind is active, the extremely subtle mind must be dormant. When the coarse mind is completely pacified, as in all the winds are stilled, only then can the extremely subtle mind become active. This is Goya Samaja completion stage presentation, not necessarily agreed upon by all schools at all. But that's the context in which Nagabuddhi is probably making his statement also. He wants to say, hey, the Lord of Consciousness, the one we have, the one that goes through the bardo, it's not separate from this mind of Vajradhara. And that's the whole point of the Goya Samaja sadhana, is to dissolve the world that's produced by the ignorant mind and create a new world with the mind of Vajradhara that's not a different mind stream. But that's how radical the tantric view has to be in transforming the ordinary mind stream. But what's one of the things that's so interesting to me about what Tsongkhapa did in his commentary on that passage was that he wanted to connect the Lord of Consciousness phrase back to Chantakirti's sutra presentation of the mind as creator of worlds. And this is his direct commentary on the mind as creator of worlds in the Illumination of the True Thought, which is the sutra teaching. So I hope that didn't confuse things more for you. But it's that the notion of emanating in that context only came up in the context of the sadhana, which is a practice at that point imagining what the mind of Vajradhara would do. But it doesn't even work to imagine it unless at some level the mind of Vajradhara was already present. So that gets into the complexity of Vajrayana logic. But we can't even get to the complexity of that logic without first understanding this point, which is the lack of inherent nature of every single instant of our own consciousness. And so in commenting on that verse in a purely sutra context, Tsongkhapa makes this distinction, which he made in a sense in the Goya Samaja text as well, which is there are vessels and there are individuals. The vessels are produced by collective karma, and the individuals are produced by individual karma. And we can debate that, but that is what he says in numerous places. Okay, and then Tsongkhapa comments further. Now, as for whether each of the two worlds of vessels and living beings, and yeah, it's not that he says the vessel of the living being, but he says the world, the jikten of the living being, and the jikten of the vessel, which is that which lacks feeling. As for whether each of the two worlds is created by karma shared in common or not, this is a point that is explained even in the great books of mind only. Therefore, even in the mind-only school, it is not as though the worlds understood as vessels do not exist. So he's, again, pushing this thing of even in the mind-only school, there's form, and there are worlds made of form, produced by consciousness. And then he, again, glosses, in this way it is stated that every wanderer without exception is born from karma, and that if you abandon the mind, then even karma would not exist. So his one statement on that is, since karma can only be collected by a being with a mind, even karma depends upon the mind. In this way, in dependence upon the statement in the Sutra on the 7 Levels that there is no maker and no one who experiences feelings, it is taught that the word only rules out other makers, anything other than our minds. Relying upon the statement that all 12 of the links depend upon a single mind, it is taught that the word only means that the mind is primary. Former explanation is from the perspective of negation, while the latter is made from the perspective of proving something. So one's clearing something away, and one is establishing it. What is cleared away are other makers. What is established is that the mind is primary. Therefore, the mind itself is the primary cause that drives wanderers to flow forth, and anything other than the mind is no such primary cause. Thus, the sutra sets forth that just the mind alone is primary, while form, a physical matter, is not. But of course, And then he quotes Chandakirti's next verse, suppose you admit that form exists. Well, but it is not the very creator in the way that the mind is. So a creator other than the mind is refuted, but we did not reject form altogether. And that's one of Chandakirti's root verses. So his commentary on that is, suppose you wish to admit that form is something that exists. Well, or nonetheless, that form is not the very creator of wanderers in the way that the mind is. This is explicitly saying the brain didn't create the mind, right? So physical matter didn't create the mind. It's explicitly saying the form, matter, can't be the creator of wanderers in the way that the mind is. So a creator other than mind is refuted or rejected, but outer form is not rejected altogether. But, and I'll go on to say, by saying that outer form is not rejected altogether, I don't see in any sense that Tsongkhapa is suggesting that outer form has its own causes that are not related to the mind. He never said that. And because he's established that the worlds, the vessels, are created from the collective karma of living beings, it's already establishing a priori from the beginning that form itself arises from karma. And we'll take a break and we'll come back to, I'm just going to skip a whole bunch of things that I thought I would do, and there's simply not time. I want to jump to Tsongkhapa's own analysis of flowing water in order to taste even more clearly what could this outer matter be that doesn't have a nature of its own. But I definitely would not want to take Tsongkhapa's point here to mean, yeah, there's a physical world out there that doesn't have to do with mind, but mind is still the main thing for us. That's not his point. He's just saying mind is the main thing. He doesn't refute outer matter. So please take a break. We'll come back as close to 4 o'clock as possible.